My name is Dominique Mohammed. I'm 29 years old. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and this past year, I've faced and defeated one of the toughest battles that I've ever faced in my life. When I was 20 years old, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4. I'm gonna bring on fellow cancer survivors to show you guys not only that you can beat any cancer, but that you can beat your zombie, whatever that is in life.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of BeastvsZombie. Today, I have a special guest with me, Chris Lawrence. Before we get into it, make sure to go follow the podcast on all social media platforms. Follow on YouTube and Spotify so you can see the full videos and stay up to date on episodes coming out every other week. So, thank you, Chris, for tuning in and coming on the show with me today. I really appreciate it. We're going to get right into it. And I want to start from the end in mind today. So how did you feel when you got the news, when you got the news from your doctor, you got the scan, that you finally overcame and beat cancer?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it and your podcast. I love what you're doing, man. You're doing great work and inspiring a lot of people. Um, hey, so Dominique, to answer your question, it was an interesting journey because I went through incurable cancer. And so it took a long time before anybody would even say, hey, you're good, you beat this. And even now, some are like, we think you beat this. Maybe you haven't, but it's been 9 years. So I'm really, really grateful. So,
Man, that's very interesting. And so, right, I do these stories with people, and some people have like curable cancers. Some people, like in your case, it's not really a thing, even though you've been in remission or cured for the past 9 years. For me, I
yeah.
know I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and when you get Hodgkin's lymphoma, I was 19 at the time. You they put you on a treatment. It's called like ABVD. It's a chemo treatment. It's a 6 month treatment, and you have a 70% chance of just like from that first treatment getting cured. And so I was the 30% that did not actually have a successful treatment, and I did radiations, a couple bone marrow transplants, and all that good stuff. Um, so, right, so you said you had stage 4 bile duct cancer. So what is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't know what the heck it was when my doctor first started talking, about it with me. I was like a lot of people just kind of cruising through life. Life was going good. I'd recently gotten married and we had a daughter, like that summer. And then that fall, this would have been fall of 2015, kind of started having this weird back pain. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then when they eventually, I mean, and it was like 6 months later, when skipping ahead, when they finally told me what it was, I didn't know what it was. I had to look it up. What's a bile duct? What is that? What's stage 4? What is metastatic? What's incurable? All this stuff that you get just thrown your way, and it's the last thing you want to learn about, but you have to. And I know a lot of people, even if it's not them who went through it personally, it's a family member, and they're learning these, or a friend, and they're learning these terms and these situations that are so tough. So yeah, it was not a fun education to learn about this type of cancer. So
Right. So 6 months, you're working with doctors, you're trying to figure out what's going on with your body. What was that process like?
yeah, so I should maybe back up a little bit. So like, so what I do for and what I was doing full time at the time for work, I was living in Colorado, and my wife and I, like, I was actually taking college students on outdoor adventures. So taking them rock climbing and backpacking, the fun stuff. I was living near Boulder, Colorado. I mean, it was a pretty sweet life. We were loving it. And then, and on the side for fun, I'm a pretty gosh, like so many people are getting into outdoor adventures these days. I think like just the way things have exploded with social media, where people are seeing these places and the things that people are doing. So anyway, I'm kind of part of that, I guess. But I love outdoor adventure, so I was doing it for work with college students, which was really meaningful. And then for fun on the side, I was competing in triathlons and mountain biking and stuff. And I just remember, I'd done this race. It went really well that summer. And then I started getting this weird back pain. And it was strange because I've never injured my back, or at least not at that point. And so it just didn't fit. And I went to this PT, and he said, oh, I'm glad you came here. We caught this early. I think you just strained a muscle. And I was hoping that that was the case. I never would have thought it'd be anything worse. Well, it got worse, like over the next weeks and months, to the point where finally I go to a sports medicine doctor, and he's like, "Oh, you're fine. You're too young and healthy. You've been doing these races and stuff. You're fine." And then it just kept getting worse. And then finally I go back to him like a couple months later. I'm like, my back is like, it's so bad. I had like spasms, and I mean, it was just awful. And he, they do an MRI finally, and he calls me, and I'll never forget the phone call. And he's like, that spot on your back that hurts, it's actually cancer, and it's spreading from somewhere else. And I was driving, I was with my wife. Unfortunately, I pulled the car over, and I had the phone on speakerphone, and we were just like devastated. We were like, what just happened? How do you go from being like healthy and all this to the complete reversal? And then we're like, okay, getting any kind of cancer is bad, but then to get a type that's supposed to be like deadly, and it just shocked us, and that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
That's that's insane. And you are not the first person I've talked to, including me, that was extremely active, a very healthy person, in great shape, maybe some of the best shape of your life, and somehow you randomly got cancer. Like
Yeah.
I think that's crazy. And right, cancer is something that nobody thinks they're gonna get until they get it. So man, I can't imagine. So how did your family, your wife, your friends respond and react to the news that you had gotten cancer?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was just devastating. And I think some other people around me were maybe more informed about what stage 4 cancer meant than I was. I just, for some reason, I'd kind of avoided a lot of that, even knowing a lot of people. But you know how it is. It just, at some point, we're going to know somebody that goes through it. It's just so widespread. But yeah, my wife, I mean, it was hard. I remember the first doctor we talked to, he was pretty grim. I mean, he was kind of like, yeah, he's on his way out. And the diagnosis, you're supposed to get a year or a year and a half. But I mean, he was kind of like, yeah, this is going fast. We should just give him a bunch of painkillers. And so she was just like, we're getting this news, and meanwhile we have this this brand new daughter who was just awesome. She was like 6 months at the time, and we were just like not thinking about life ending, but thinking about so much of it just beginning. And so yeah, it was a total reversal. And then yeah, my family, oh man, everybody was just in shock, and it was kind of crazy. We went to that doctor, and we were just like so many people, just so confused. It's like, now what the heck do we do? This doctor says this. He's like, it was very hopeless. And then I remember talking to my parents, and they're like, well, so I'm originally from South Dakota, from the Midwest, and my parents are like, why don't you come back here and just be around us? We'll support you through this. Like, the medical care is good, here. It sounds like they obviously blew early detection in Colorado where you were at. So let's at least just try it here, and we'll pray about it and just kind of see what happens. And so we did, and we ended up going back to South Dakota, which that was weird. It was kind of like we were uprooted from our whole life. This is a weird experience, but that's kind of what we did. We went back there to be near my family, not really knowing what was going to happen. So,
Yeah. So side note, my grandmother is from North Dakota.
oh,
And so we all live in Oregon. I live in Las Vegas now, but we all live in Oregon. But I've gone out to visit North Dakota a couple times. I have some buddies in Minnesota as well. Um,
Oh,
and so I spent a little bit of time out there, so that's actually pretty funny. Um, s
yeah. I've actually spent a decent amount of time in Las Vegas too. So it's called Red Rocks Conservation Area. You familiar with that?
yes,
I've I've literally gone there about 9 times on climbing trips.
yep. People,
So yeah, it's
the
so
rock
cool.
climbing here is supposed to be like world class.
It is. It is.
That's
Yeah,
what I've
you live in
heard.
an awesome spot.
Cool, cool. So you're you get the news, you go back to South Dakota. What kind of treatment plan or what happens next? What starts this journey? And like how long did that take for you to overcome and beat cancer?
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to speed it up a little bit. But I mean, so we went back to South Dakota, and it's weird. Like where I'm from originally, I'm originally from Sioux Falls. You would not expect it, but they have really good medical care there. And there's two big health systems, and you know, I was still facing a lot. I met with a couple different oncologists. I went to the one place, and the guy was younger than me, the oncologist was, and I was in my like my 30s, and I'm like, I don't know, dude, this is not a really good time for me to like you to cut your teeth on like my dire prognosis here. I mean, he was like right out of medical school. It's kind of funny. So I went to the other system, and I found a doctor, but the news was still the same. It's like you're facing something really challenging. You got a year and a half, and it was just a total blow, total loss of hope, and we didn't know what to do. And I was my family, we were praying a lot. Personal faith is kind of like a big deal, and so, but we just didn't know what to do. We're just like, what is going to happen? So here's what happened. Like it was maybe a couple weeks after that, the cancer center was at. They're like, well, there's one more doctor we want you to meet with, and I'm like, okay, and I didn't. They're like, yeah, he's from our cancer research department. And I didn't really know why. Honestly, I didn't want to. I almost blew off the appointment because I'm like, I'm so tired of meeting with doctors and them telling me like terrible news, all this stuff all over. It's like painful every time. And so this time we meet with this doctor, and my dad was there, my wife was there, and his name was, he's this British doctor. And he kind of comes in with his clipboard and his team of medical people. And he's like, with his kind of British accent, and he's like, "Well, good news, I know how to treat this." And we're like, What?" And then he kind of went on and explained like, "So we're going to do this genetic testing, genomic sequencing from your blood to determine like what's causing your cancer." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, and actually, I need to back up. They had already done that test. I don't even remember when I did it, but he's like, based on here's what we think is driving your cancer, and we are going to come up with a treatment plan that targets that. And this is 9 years ago, so the science on this was super new. Uh, this is 9 years later, so a lot of this stuff has taken root in a lot of different cancer centers, which I'm very, very thankful for. But he says, "Here's what we're going to do." So it was a triple drug therapy. It was chemo, it was immunotherapy, and a targeted drug, and it was not fun. But I'm like, okay, we don't really. But this guy said this, and it's like that day we felt hope for the first time in like my whole journey. And I remember he and his team walk out the room, and I'm just sitting there with my dad and my wife, and we were just like, wow, what just happened? Like, he didn't give us guarantees. He didn't say, "Oh, we got this." But he's like, the like hope was there. So much so that my dad wrote "Hope" on the board, and then actually that's where the name for the organization I run, Hope Has Arrived. That's where it came from. That day, meeting with that doctor, we felt like hope had arrived. And but anyway, he didn't give us guarantees. But I said, yeah, I want to try this research path. I'm going down this road. So I kind of signed my life away, not really knowing what was going to happen. And within a few months, my scans started showing clear, and it was crazy. But there was kind of how did he say it? A little disagreement between traditional and like kind of the research, because they're like, well, that's great that the scan looks good, but like there is no cure for this. And so, I mean, it just was kind of this thing. It went on for a couple of years. I was still in treatment, and then scans kept showing clear, but it was like every single scan was like so scary, because it just felt like everybody seemed like they're waiting for the shoe to drop. the shoe never dropped. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It just kept staying clear. I had to go through this terrible gauntlet of treatment. I did like, I don't know, it was like 30 rounds of chemo. It was awful. But then it was like maybe 3 years total. I had to stop certain things at certain points. But then finally, I got off all treatment and cancer didn't come back. And that was like 5, 6 years ago. So here I am today. It's kind of what happened.
Man, that's an insane journey. I can relate to you on um like waiting for scans. Like my whole situation, my whole journey, I like initially I responded very well, then it came back, then I've had to get in remission to do bone marrow transplants, knowing that my cancer is just going to come back. Um, so I totally get that feeling of like it's like scan anxiety, whatever you want to call it. Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's tough. Man, so the it took you about 3-ish years of going through treatments, and then now it's been 9 years. And so what kind of follow-up are you doing currently with any of your doctors, um, to make sure that you're still good?
Um, yeah, it's pretty minimal. I mean, it's like
That's good.
labs a couple times a year, though. I just got a new doctor, and he's like, "Eh, we want to do a scan." I'm like, "Let's not." But yeah,
Yeah.
I know he's I know it's probably good. But yeah, so it's been a few 2, 3 years since I've had a scan. But we got to this weird place where the doctor's like, "Well, we don't really know what to do. I don't know if there's a purpose to keep scanning you. Like,
Yeah.
if something's going to come back, you'll probably be the first to
To know.
know." And it hasn't. Um, but other than that, I mean, I just try to live a healthy lifestyle. I don't really know what's different about. I was already living a healthy lifestyle. Maybe I'm a little more aware of it, but uh, yeah. And then I try to do it. Oh gosh, there's a lot of different screenings. Kind of early detection stuff I do as well, just to but I'm not getting scans a lot. That's kind of not where I'm at. It's more like preventative things, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So what
Um,
kind of things outside of you're an extremely active person, what kind of things do you do or did you do before to stay healthy? And I know you said maybe some of it didn't change, but like what kind of things? Because like I know for me, I never had like a very good diet. Like I've been an
mm,
athlete all my life, so I was always in good shape anyway. I could go eat Taco Bell and then go play basketball for hours. Like I never
yeah.
had a problem with that. And in going through this whole journey, I always thought, okay, I could talk to a dietitian. He could help me get my diet. That's something that I can control on my side that that ideally could help maybe prevent, but then help me beat cancer. And all the dietitians ever told me was like, yeah, just, eat a healthy, balanced diet. And it was never very clear. And still to this day, like it's not very clear on what I can do to be healthy to prevent cancer from coming back or to be
Yeah.
healthy in general. Like there's so much information with online and in the world, and it's very hard to like discern fact from opinions. And
Yeah.
right, obviously every person is different, so you kind of have to do what's best for you. But what kind of things do you do to stay healthy, or that you've always done?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a really good question. And I agree. There's a lot of noise out there. And I think I wish there was one magic silver bullet for everybody because man, wouldn't that be great? Like it's kind of confusing, but you gotta figure out what your body in particular needs, and do that. But yeah, I think one thing I didn't mention when I went through treatment, I mean, my wife and I, we definitely cleaned up our diet quite a bit. Like it was not that bad before, but I think it was like, I don't know, hey, we can eat whatever we want for dessert, things like that. But yeah, I mean, these days, I think a lot of that has continued, like the healthier diet, just limiting certain things, like not, limiting things like alcohol. I barely ever do, but Um, yeah, just trying to be very in moderation. I exercise regularly too. I mean, what's cool is a lot of the stuff I do, I like to do, and it's good for you. You know, like biking and skiing and stuff like that, and hiking. We live in a part of Colorado where there's a lot of stuff nearby that we go like to go do. So that's helpful. I think just trying to be active, and I've had like times too where, oh, just if I'm injured or something else where you got to do more light stuff. Maybe it's just going for a walk or something. But I think that's really important. And I think the early detection stuff, like all of it, based on your age, based on different genetic risk factors and stuff, like it's really important. And then honestly, I think for me, like I alluded to a little bit, but it's honestly prayer. It's kind of my relationship with God, just trusting that He's got my future. I try to do my best I can, but then at the end of the day, the only thing that really gives me peace is like I'm like, all right, God, you know what my life is about? It's surrendered to you. You got my future. I sure hope I don't have to go down this road again, but if I do, it's in your hands. And that's really the part I think that helps me find peace, because I think we got to do our part. Like we can't just be like, yeah, whatever. uh or like I had a type of cancer, this liver cancer, so it's like, should I be a heavy drinker? Probably not. That would probably be very unwise, right?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
No,
yeah.
that's great. And so it's interesting. It's actually so funny that this conversation has come up with me in the past 2 weeks multiple times on like having a belief, having a faith, have like and surrendering to that belief and understanding that like whatever you believe in, like right, like you said, you do your part, you try your hardest, right? But you still have a belief that like everything is happening like how it's supposed to happen, right? Or like God's
Yeah.
got this, or whatever you believe in, but having a deep faith and deep understanding that it's going to be okay. And this is not just for beating cancer. I love that you brought, but this is like in being successful with anything in life, and because everybody has a plan, and I like to say the plan never goes according to plan, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and right, I know for you, the plan was not to get cancer and go through this stuff.
I know.
Um, but that's part of your journey, and how you're going to be able to get to where you're going in life. And I love that you're able to really have a strong and deep belief, that like everything's going to be okay. And I think that really helps people's mind, and like I don't know, not stressing too much and not worried. Like the mind is more powerful than any of us really understand, right?
Yeah.
And really having that belief and that understanding, like I always say, I just led by example with a positive attitude through this whole thing, so that for one, for me, I felt good, but for also my friends, my family, the people that I care for, they saw that I was confident, and I felt good that like my faith or whatever I believed in, that like everything's going to be okay. And so I
Mhm.
think, yeah, I think that's a really big part of why you've been able to get through this. I mean, even the way you talk about it, I can tell that, it might have been frustrating, but you were looking at it and, as positive as you can about it, and you powered through it by the grace of God. Like that, like it's
Yeah.
crazy you had an incurable cancer and you've lived now for 9 years. I imagine you look like you feel great right now. I
I
imagine,
do.
yeah.
I feel great, man. I do. I
And
do.
so I love to
Yeah.
see that. And backtrack a little bit. I love how technology and like research kind of helped you out. So for me, I did two bone marrow transplants. I did I did one, and then and also right, because so since I wasn't originally cured from the first treatments, I eventually did an immune therapy treatment opposed to just a
Oh.
traditional chemo or radiation treatment, and that originally did get me into remission. And so I did a bone marrow transplant after that, And when I did the first bone marrow transplant, all you could do is like the one I did, I gave myself my own cells. So I didn't have cancer in my T cells. And so I was able to kind of collect my own cells and give them back to myself, basically. And it didn't even work, actually. The first bone marrow transplant, it didn't even work. And I always kind of think about it like, okay, I have cancer. I'm giving myself my own cells. Like, does that even make sense? I don't know. But then, so fast forward another 3 years, because eventually I did get into remission from the immune therapy. And then I had like a reoccurrence. The cancer came back after 3 years of remission, and it was time. The next option was to do another bone marrow transplant, but use somebody else's cells. And now, so in that 3 years, initially I could only give myself my own cells, or I needed a full match. Like, so I put my blood in a database, and they try to find a full match, which is very hard for me. My background, my mother is Korean, and then my father is an African American guy, so he's black. And and so like that match, I don't know if I would ever find an exact match. But then 3 years later, when I did my next transplant, now I could do half matches. Now I could do quarter matches. There was research that showed that it didn't make a difference. So today now I'm living with my dad's cells, and he was able to be a donor. And 3 years earlier to that, my mom, my dad, my sister weren't eligible to do that. There wasn't enough research. And so it's
Wow.
really cool to see how research impacts the cancer world or the medical industry, and it seems like pretty fast. And it's cool that we were able to kind of be the tip of the spear for, we were kind of like guinea pigs, you know?
I, yeah,
You
that's
know?
right. That's right.
Right.
Wow. That's an amazing story, and I'm so glad to hear you're doing well too, man. That is just that's incredible. Yeah, and it sounds like I mean a lot of that was due to the progress they've made with what you're facing as well, and just the kind of differences of treating it and yeah.
Yeah. And and man, it right when it's hard to listen to doctors and or to other people about your cancer, right? Because like at the end of the day, it's still like an opinion. It's a doctor's opinion. It's a professional opinion. It may be backed on research and experience, right? But it's still an opinion. And it's very interesting. Like I had my one of my grandmas, she had like an extreme, she had like brain cancer. And she eventually she
Mm.
did pass away, but they gave her a certain amount of time and she lived way longer, right? So it's like,
Wow.
and that's why I always say like the power of the mind, right? Because the opinions that you get from other people, you can't always take into account, because it's not like they don't define you. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I just think I really applaud you. You got all these opinions from all these doctors that was so bad, and you kind of persevered. Thank God you took that doctor's appointment. You kind of persevered, kept going. You got through, and you got to somebody that could actually help you, that actually had confidence, and like you said, hope that they could actually do it. And that was enough to really give you, your family, your support enough kind of like energy to like feel good. And I feel like that's a very important part of beating cancer, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're right. Being open to possibilities. Um, yeah. I mean, I love what you do that you're telling stories because I think I mean, I share more about it at some point, but Hope has arrived. One of the ways we help people find hope is stories. And we've told, oh, it's been more than 70 or 75 stories that we've told. Because yeah, people just need to know, it's like how it is. Even if someone hears this interview today or hears your story again, maybe their story is not exactly the same, but just knowing that we were able to get through something difficult. And even when some of the stats said no, or the stats aren't in favor, like there are possibilities. And so people need to cling on to that hope that that can happen, you know?
yes. And that's why I do this podcast as well, right? Beast versus zombie, the whole idea is, right, everybody's a beast. and everybody has zombies that they challenges that they need to overcome, right? Big and small. And ideally they can find inspiration and motivation from these stories. That's a really big deal, and I know stories are extremely powerful, right? And that's why we're here. So, you know, going back to now, right, like you beat cancer, what caused you, or what like inspired you to start Hope Has Arrived?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I'd love to ask you more sometime too. I mean, you've shared a little bit with me, but because it's, you know how it is, like just because you go through it doesn't mean you got to start an organization. You gotta, you know what I mean? Like and I think a lot of people, and I was like this too. I kind of I wanted to leave it behind. It's so hard. It was such a difficult time. I didn't want to be I didn't want to be identified with it, like, or I didn't want to be defined by it. And I'm like, hey man, I lived a whole life before cancer. I'd sure like to live as much possible, afterwards, and not just be the cancer guy or whatever. But yeah, it was a few different things. I think it was really, as you go through it, it changes you in that you're just aware of the hard things people go through. And I didn't like to admit it at first, but I'm like, man, when I see some of these other people, the infusion center, and I was usually one of the youngest people, and I'm sure you maybe had that too. You maybe you were the youngest, I don't know, but like when I would see people rarely that were younger than me, I just felt so sad because I'm just like, this is so hard at any age, but man, I can't believe what people have to go through. So there was this compassion. I just had this compassion for people and what they go through, and this awareness that I didn't have before. And frankly, I might have avoided it, because I'm just like, I don't know, man, that's so hard. I'm just gonna go over here, because I don't really know if I wasn't trying to be unkind, but it's just like it's a lot. Cancer's overwhelming and what people go through. But what really prompted us to start Hope Has Arrived, I'd say us, me, and then my dad was part of that, and then we have a board of directors. We formed it into a nonprofit, but it was uh it was reading some different things. Like I was thinking about it. My dad, after we met with that doctor, he's kind of crazy. He reserved the URL hopehasarrived.com that day we met with the doctor. And he said he did it and he didn't even really know why he did it. And then later, 6 months later, he's like, uh, hey, I reserved this URL. What do you think we do? I'm like, I can't even think about that right now. They're telling me I don't have much time left. And you're talking about starting this organization, and but over time, as I did do better, and there was no guarantees. Even when I started it, I'm like, I start this organization. Am I going to be dead before it even like does anything? You know, um, but I kept surviving. My health kept improving. But honestly, it was reading something out of the book of Psalms. It was Psalm 40. It's from the Bible. I know, and I know your listeners probably come from a lot of different spiritual backgrounds, and I have great respect for wherever people are at. But this is kind of my story. Was I was reading this psalm, and it was talking about this person who's stuck in this pit, and that he was lifted, that God lifted him out of the slimy pit, and that's like, and then he's kind of like praising him and thanking him afterwards. And I was like, whoa, that's cancer. That's exactly what it feels like. You're in this pit, you're staring up at it, and you're like, I don't know if I'm ever getting out. And when I read that, it just really struck me because I'm like, wow, this is what people go through. And then this is weird. So it got me thinking, I'm like, oh man, I think maybe I'm supposed to do something with this. And then a couple of days later, my wife said, she's like, oh, hey, I was reading Psalm 40, 1 through 3, and I was thinking about all that you went through and what we went through. I think we need to do something. I'm like, oh gosh. And then my dad was like, oh, hey, I was reading Psalm 40, and you remember that website address I reserved? Like, I was just thinking about you and what you went through, and that we need to help other people find hope. And I'm just like, okay, I'm getting the message here, like, so that's what happened. And we started it in 2018. Um, my background's writing, journalism. And so I'm like, okay, I can do some stories. I'll write some of my own, interview other people. but the whole purpose was just to try to help other people find hope, strength, and peace. And we landed on those three words because I'm like, that's what I needed every day. And you know how it is. Like I faced other things after cancer that maybe not to that degree, but they've been challenging. It's like, wow, this hope thing is kind of like it's so critical for so much of life. And I didn't think a lot about it before because maybe I thought some things were hard in my life, but they were not anything compared to like cancer. So, um, yeah, so that's how we started it. And it just kind of, it was mainly like a website and putting stories on there to try to help inspire and give people hope. And, then it just kind of took off from there. And today there's kind of four ways we do it. It's stories, four ways we help people find hope. It's through stories, it's through strength for the journey, which is just articles about the cancer experience and how to get through it. And then thirdly, it's about prayer because I found that was really helpful for me. And then fourth, we have a support group. So those are kind of the four things. But this is a thing you might find surprising, and it was to me because at first I'm like, treatment is so important. Like as someone going through it, you're like, you have to be confident that the treatment you're getting is the right plan. And there's no guarantees, but you're like, you just want to be confident. And if anyone's listening to this and you're not confident, I hope that you can get a second opinion or whatever you need to like be as confident as you can. And just so you know that you've done the best you can, because that's where I was at. There was no guarantee. I'm just like, we're going down this road and I hope this is the best. So anyway, that's one thing. But then I found like prayer was really important. And that's the part that surprised me with our organization is that we get emails all the time. People are like, hey, you talked about prayer being really important. How do I pray? Like, why is that important? And like, how do I even do it? Because I feel like I need that right now. And that was really surprising to me, Dominique. That was, and then when I've looked at stats, I saw other people facing cancer. They wanted that. Gosh, what is it? It was one I read. It was like 80 or 90% of people facing cancer like pray regularly about their health. I'm like, wow, okay, there's something here.
Right.
Anyway, I'm talking a lot, man.
No,
Give you a chance to come.
no, this is great. I really love that you were able to hear the signs and put this organization together, man. I don't believe in coincidence. That was definitely on purpose. That happened for a reason and came to you. It wasn't there was no coincidence in that, and that's really amazing that you're able to take something that was so rough, so challenging, and really, like you said, it's maybe a little scary, maybe you don't want to deal with it, but you're able to kind of lean into that and really try and help others, which I believe, and I've always heard this is what they say is to be the most successful people in the world, right? You have to help the most people. And I really do truly believe that. And, again, that's why I do the podcast. That's why I've always wanted a way to be able to inspire and help people. And this was kind of that opportunity that I thought that I could kind of fill that position. Um, Man, so where can people find you? How can they find Hope Has Arrived on social media, on the
Yeah.
website and online, all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're at hopehasarrived.com. And we're on Instagram. We're Hope Has Arrived Hope Has Arrived 16. And then on Facebook, we're just Hope Has Arrived. So they can find us there. Um, I'm a little older than you, so that's kind of the extent of our socials at this point. But there's a lot more to get into. We're on LinkedIn a little bit and stuff
Yeah,
like that. But mostly it's Meta, it's Instagram and Facebook is
yeah,
where we're connecting with people. People sign up for our emails, and we have a bunch of resources on there that I think people would find helpful. Like one that a lot of people said was helpful is 10 tips for facing your next scan. We talked about scanxiety. So we have this free kind of ebook that you can get. It's just walking through that process. Like, what are some things you can do to help you stay in a calm, positive, peaceful mindset? And yeah, they can go to the website. If you don't see it, it's on the front. But if you I can actually give you the link for it, but
Okay.
it's hopeisarrived.com/cancer-scan, and then it would go to that page where you get it for free. But anyway, we have resources like that, and then tons of stories, just to try to help people walk through the journey. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's amazing. And I think it's really interesting, like you said, the statistics that you brought up earlier about prayer. I I personally like my grandfather is Islamic. My parents are not very religious. And so growing up, I just prayed a lot with my dad. Um, and so we didn't spend a lot of time like in church. My grandparents would do like a service on like Easter's or on like New Year's and stuff like that. That was kind of the extent. And there's been periods of times when I did attend church regularly. Um, but I know like this whole cancer journey really um I can't say like instilled but reinforced my belief in my faith in whatever you believe in, right? And I had an experience where I was on a plane. So at one point I was flying back and forth every 2 weeks from Las Vegas to Portland to get my chemo treatments done. And
Mm.
so I'd fly back and forth every 2 weeks. And so I would always try and make it a point to talk to whoever I was sitting by on the plane, just have a conversation. Sometimes people don't want to talk. Sometimes I would get really crazy stories and I would know somebody's whole life story. But one time I met a lady, her name was Lisa. I don't remember her last name. I have her on Facebook though, but she said, okay, I'm going to pray for you. I have a very big network on social media. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to post and you're going to get all kinds of gratitude and all kinds of love. And we sat there and
Wow.
we prayed on the plane and it was probably one of the first times as an adult that I really felt like I don't know, there was a shift of energy. I felt some kind of energy. Like it felt very good. It felt very positive. It gave me chills, right? I'm on the plane. This is a stranger that I've never met before that I just decided to talk to. We no coincidence, we sat on the plane next to each other and I started talking to her, right? And she prayed for me, right? And she did exactly what she said she was going to do. She posted online and all these people are blowing me up. Oh, we're praying for you. Oh, thank God. Oh, blessings, you know. And it was probably one of the most impactful situations that I've had as an adult dealing with any type of faith, any type of religious beliefs, but dealing with prayer and really strengthened my relationship with God in a very major way.
Wow.
And you know, and that's a big deal, and that has carried through with me in my life and has made a very big impact. So I love what you were talking about with prayer. Um,
Wow. That's quite a story, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah. And so I mean, like I couldn't have imagined, right? I was about to hop on the plane. This lady's gonna pray for me. I'm gonna get the chills, and all these people are gonna send me, you know, positive vibes. Like it was very impactful.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and she was a complete stranger. It's interesting as well. While you're going through these journeys, you real like I always say cancer is like war, or this journey is like war. I also say life is like war, but like, right, a cancer battle is like war, and you really need all that you can get as you're going through this whole process. And and so like those positive vibes, those all like really made an extremely big impact on me. And I, yeah, like I said, as a complete stranger, she gave me all this positive energy. She could have done anything, and she decided, you know, that she would try and help me, and I really appreciated it. So yeah, man, we are getting to the end of this episode. Um, I want to ask you one last question right before we get going. So, to anybody out there that's going through some type of challenge, whether that's dealing with cancer like we have, whether that's finances, whether that's relationships, maybe it's just getting to the gym, maybe they're just trying to overcome some work problems. What kind of advice would you give them to try and overcome what I would call their zombies in their life?
Hmm. Yeah. And there's lots of them out there, aren't there? Oh man, there's so many things that can be so challenging. I mean, I think hope is just so powerful. And what I found, it's amazing how a little bit, it sometimes starts out as a little bit, but man, it can just change the trajectory. And I think sometimes when we get in these difficult situations and when we realize we're kind of dealing with it from a hopeless place, kind of bad things happen. It totally impacts how we respond, maybe some of the decisions. And I think sometimes we almost have to like hit the pause button and be like, whoa, 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 hold on here. I'm like pretty hopeless right now. I need to like take a step back before I just start like, because it's a trajectory, you know? And so I don't know. Yeah, just to stop and see, yeah, just to push pause if you feel like you're approaching whatever challenge from a hopeless place. I think it's a mistake, you know? And then I would say this for people that are facing cancer specifically. And I was just talking to a guy yesterday, and I love getting the opportunity to talk to other people going through it. You know, we talked in the beginning. I was like, this is scary. I don't want to do this. Honestly, I've totally changed. I'm like, I want to do this. I want to help people. It's a joy to try to help other people, you know, find hope. But what I would say, and I was just telling this to a guy, yeah, a couple of days ago, just that because you know he got a really bad diagnosis. It's really scary. He's young, and I was just like, man, and you know, doctors are like talking about hospice, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, look, man, I think you need to be on the path of life. Until God says otherwise, you're on the path of life. You know, it's like, and I think just like you're talking about, you know, staying on that positive track. I think he needed to stay on that track, and I think it really helped him think through that because it's like, yeah. Otherwise, think about all the decisions you're going to start making. You're like, this is done. It's over. It's like, well, there may be time for that if it goes that way, but you don't know that it's going to go that way. So yeah, hey, that's what I would say. That's a long-winded answer, but I think it's making sure you're making decisions from a place of hope and not that hopeless place, which is it's like that's the time to hit the pause button, you know. So
I totally, I totally agree with you. And thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I know for me, when I was going through this whole situation, like I always, when I was in the appointments, when I'm talking to the doctors, my mom wanted to know all the details. Well, what if this happens? Well, what if that happens? Well, if this happens, then what? If this happens, if, right? All I was concerned about, what's the treatment? What do we need to do? Let's do it because there's a possibility, there's hope that this can be it. This can get me through what I've been going through all of these years. Right? That's all I was concerned about. And that's what made me feel good was understanding, right? Like you were saying earlier, I had doctors I trusted and respected, and I felt confident in the treatment plans that they were giving me. Now I know what I need to do. Now I'm gonna attack that. Like that's what made me feel good. That's what gave me hope through this whole situation. Or like in what I would call is like positivity. And there's been times like I'm not perfect when I was hopeless, when I was very negative, and it was really tough, and I was stuck, and you know, like you said, I was in that pit, and it was really tough. I didn't know I didn't know how I was gonna get through it, but you know, one day, one step at a time, here I am today, and we got through this. You know what I'm saying? So, that's all we have today for this episode of Beast vs. Zombie. Make sure that you guys go follow Hope Has Arrived on IG. Go to the website, hopehasarrived.com. Go follow the podcast, Beast vs. Zombie, on all social media platforms. Follow on Spotify and YouTube. You can see the full videos and stay up to date on new episodes. And check out the website, Beast vs. Zombie, for any merchandise to support the cause. All proceeds are donated to cancer research. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be a beast.